If you've ever heard me talk about the power of a sales call before, you already know that I'm a huge advocate for using them with your prospective freelance clients. The sales call is, simply put, the chance for you to clinch the deal and convince this person that you're the right one to work on their project. As an added bonus, it's also your chance to screen the client. And that's where most freelancers forget that this is a two-way street. You don't want every client, and not every client will want to work with you either. But there are some key red flags you can watch out for on a sales call or prospective client call that should clue you in to the needs for additional communication or inquiry about where this is coming from. The first red flag I always watch out for is someone who's told me that they've worked with many or dozens of other freelancers that they've had to fire. Usually that's an indication that there's something wrong with the client and not the freelancers. So do a little bit of digging to learn more about that. A second thing to be aware of is figuring out how many revisions the client wants. If they demand unlimited rounds of revision during a sales call, I can't think of any freelance project where a freelancer should agree to that. Unlimited rounds of revision, or honestly more than a handful, are hardly ever necessary. Even if you're working on a project like a book for somebody that's going to be a very high volume project, you should put a cap on the amount of revisions required. The third thing to watch out for is, how does the client actually speak to you? This is a small one, it seems, but for me, it's actually the most important thing. If the client is rude or uses language that I'm not comfortable with on the sales call, it's a pretty clear indication that's how most of our communication will probably go going forward. So I want to know that up front. Anyone who questions my expertise or makes me seem like I'm going to have to beg this job is instantly someone that I don't want to work with. As freelancers, we have the choice about who we bring on as clients, so be really specific about who you want to work with. Do you want to deal with difficult people, or do you simply want to say, no, that's not for me, thanks for the opportunity, but I'm going to pass? Now, it can be shocking when you turn people down even on a sales call or shortly thereafter, but make sure you're always using the call to your advantage to be able to tell whether or not this is someone you truly want to work with. I'm sure there are many more things you can think of that can happen on a prospective client call that might make you be really questioning whether or not to work with this person at all. The final one that I'll bring up is people who start pushing on price right on the sales call. If a client comes back and wants a discount or wants to drop your rates by more than 50%, or demands things that are completely ridiculous or even illegal, like asking you to act like an employee or taking phone calls over the weekend or sitting at your computer at night just in case they might need to Skype you, those are also things to keep in mind about your own communication boundaries, what works for you and what doesn't. I don't want a freelance business that's bleeding over so much into my personal life that it's really frustrating. So you've got to determine what those boundaries and red flags are for you. But in my experience, these are the ones that always come to the top of the list that I'm not specifically asking people about, unless I have a clear question about maybe how they've treated other freelancers in the past. You can get around that by asking, tell me about your experience working with freelancers before and perhaps why you're looking for another one now. And even the very way that they respond and the language they use will tell you a lot about how they approach freelancers. Do they respect your time and your expertise? The way they talk about people they've worked with before can give you a big clue. Sometimes they'll just be very general and say, it just didn't work out, which is a very professional way to handle it. But if they start telling you a lot of personal details about the freelancer or are speaking very angrily, be aware that that's how they might talk about you in the future too, and they might even talk to you that way. So be aware of these red flags on a prospective client call, and make sure you always stand firm in what's important to you in a working relationship as a freelancer.